USA flag tonight. What are the reasons,
Quite right.
Dave? Is it just because Amy's coming on the show that you're displaying the USA flag?
Yes. But that's the only reason. It's to make her feel at home in our virtual world. When Frank joins us, I try to put up the flag. Obviously, I don't want to go into the politics. I'm not too sure where Amy's politics are at the moment. That's up to her to mention that if she wishes. But yeah, at the election, I thought we'll have this backdrop. And at the time, we didn't know what was going to happen. And I just thought, a bit of patriotism. Because, we've only loaned the country or the land to America.
Yes,
our queen, until your queen Elizabeth, says, okay, I want it all back now, please. Thank you very much.
Yes. but anyway, we've slated Amy's country completely.
Never. I'm a patriot.
Welcome, Amy, to Astro Radio. So how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hold on one second. The only time somebody wants to call me is when I'm online.
That's normal.
And our pictures are right over for me to... Can you hear my phone ringing?
No, we can't actually. No, not at all.
Good, because it's going nuts in my ear, and it's my son. There we go. Hopefully he doesn't call me back.
It's all right. What we'll do, if he calls you back, give me the nod and I'll put another track on and then you can speak to him. Because I get given hell if my daughter rang and I didn't speak to her. So yeah.
Aww. Well, yeah, and my son technically doesn't live with me right now while we're in this new living arrangement. So I don't get to see him but once a week, it seems like, which is strange.
Yeah. So over there in the USA at the moment, how are you coping with the pandemic as far as travel goes? Because I know yourself, you travel out a lot to do your photography. How's that restricting you out there?
Well, I haven't done any landscape photography in about a year now. In fact, my last time out was last January when I went to the coast, Charleston, for a sunrise. And pretty much I've been home and doing astrophotography from the backyard. And every now and then I drive out to Deer Lake Astronomy Village, which is about an hour from here. And I get to hang out with all my buddies out on the field because, we are the ultimate social distancing hobby. So that's about the only time I get out to see anybody,
I mean, we're under quite extreme travel restrictions here. I mean, I go into Wales to do my astrophotography, DSLR photography and landscape photography. And I can't, it's only 4 miles up the road, but we're not allowed into Wales. So, where I go normally, I'm only 4 miles away, but I'm restricted. So I'm just having to walk around the local village. And you're looking for things, and I think I've photographed every brick on the castle in the village. I've photographed every paving stone, everything. So, Amy, tell us a little bit about how you got into
that.
Yeah, how did you get into astrophotography? What was your route into it? Was it something you started to do as a conscious thing, or something you drifted into?
I kind of drifted into it. I am an extreme hobbyist when it comes to photography. I've been doing photography for a very long time. And then all of a sudden we came up and had the solar eclipse in 2017. So it just seemed like a natural thing for me to try to photograph that, which led to me buying a little star tracker and all those things. And, I got on the bandwagon with everyone else. But when it was done, I had this little piece of equipment I had no clue what to do with. And one of my buddies told me, he goes, you do know that with your telephoto lens and that little star tracker and your Nikon, you can get Andromeda. And I was like, no way, let alone I didn't even know what Andromeda was, where it was, or anything like that. So we went out to the field one day and polar aligned, and he showed me how to star walk and get onto Andromeda. And next thing I know, I had a 1 minute exposure of Andromeda on the back of my Nikon, and I was shocked that I got it. And well, I want more.
Yeah.
And that led to me going home and watching YouTube channels and finding out, well, what else can I get that will go on the tracker? And before I knew it, it exploded and busted the bank.
Well, and of course you use PixInsight. You use PixInsight a lot, don't you?
I do. And the main reason I chose PixInsight was I was on a Mac platform. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there wasn't very many softwares out there that used Mac. And I didn't want to have to go buy another computer to start all this. Everything else was so expensive. So that's just kind of where I landed with it.
So
But it was a huge learning curve.
It is. I mean, pixel sight is a massive learning curve, but your videos make it so accessible to people to use, like myself. I mean, I've watched your videos.
I try.
I mean, I've watched a lot of your videos to learn how to use PixInsight, to be fair. And so light pollution wise, do you suffer greatly from light pollution in the area that you actually live?
Yes, I do. I'm kind of in the valley of everything. So I've got the Walmarts and the grocery stores, everything up around me, not to mention the new recreation park that is my backyard. And they do football games there and soccer and rugby and all of these things out there. So it's quite busy until about midnight. And about after midnight, they turn the lights off, except for the street lights. But that's when my neighbors' security lights come back on. I think they're sensitive to a certain light at that time. And when the field turns off, they turn on. I just can't win there.
So equipment wise, if you're going to, with cameras particularly, what sort of camera do you favor as far as CMOS cameras go?
Well, I've got two that I use a lot. It really depends on what's going on with the moon. I've got the Altair Astro 269C that I use. It's a one-shot color. It's cooled, which I prefer because it makes life easier when it comes to calibration frames and stuff. I just need to take one master set and I'm good for several months. I use that a lot when the moon's not out so much, and I can pair it up with some light pollution filters. And that has really surprised me. But my other favorite is I've got a ZWO 1600 monochrome. And I really, really love doing narrowband imaging. And now that I've got that up and running in the backyard, I'll probably be taking more narrowband because I'm just one of those crazy ones that really like that blue tinge on my photos, but that's the artistic me coming out.
So when you approach the subject of photography, I've got a feeling you approach it from the same way I do. I approach it from an artistic point of view and not a scientific point of view.
Exactly. I am learning the science. I was not born into astronomy and a heavy, hitter with it. So I'm learning the constellations. I'm learning what's out there. But I look at what's out there and I see other people's photos and I think of it definitely from an artistic point where I was like, well, if I smooth that out or did something, and some people might say it's fake, but it's my kind of fake. And it makes me happy. And you know what? My photographs have to make me happy before they make anybody else happy.
Exactly. That's my approach as well. Totally. I approach it, when I produce a photograph, if it makes me happy and I'm happy with it, then if everybody isn't happy with it, that's their problem. And,
exactly. I'd like other people to be happy with it, but it's my hobby. It's my relaxation.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Brilliant. I like that. Girl after my own heart when it comes to photography, that is. What I'm going to do, go on.
I've got all the science guys around me and they're all trying to teach me and then the proper terms. And that's been quite funny because I don't pick up on those real quick sometimes, but I do have an engineering background. So that definitely helps me with the tinkering of things. And I love wiring things up. I don't know why. It's just, I enjoy that part. I get that part from my dad, I think.
So whereabouts exactly are you based?
Augusta, Georgia in the United States. So home of the Augusta National Golf Tournament.
So you're not far from are you far from the Carolinas, from South Carolina?
I'm right on the border. I've got the Savannah River separating me in Carolina. So
we have a rock band that comes out to our local town. They come out quite often, and they're from South Carolina, and they come out and they keep inviting me to go back out there. Of course, that's not going to be possible at the moment, but one day.
No, South Carolina is only 2 miles away.
Yeah,
that's how close I am.
Oh, that's not bad.
I'm on the border.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let the guys in the panel tonight ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. Just don't overscience me.
Oh, there'll be no, they won't overscience you. They're quite laid back and gentle folk. Well, they usually are anyway.
Oh,
But
there you go. They don't bite.
no, not at all. Okay, Dave,
go.
I'll hand it over to you. Dave's gone quiet again. He's switched his mic off.
Yep.
Press the button. Press the button. I feel like, I drink water when I was around the air, and you can hear the gulping on the microphone, so I always mute it and forget to turn it off. But there we go. I like to be told. There we go. I was going to say, you mentioned about being an engineer. I'm an engineer. I work in health service, so I do what we call medical engineering, medical equipment, ventilators, anaesthetic machines. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. It does help to have a background. If you've got an electronic background, you know how to use a multimeter and a soldering iron. That is so useful. If you can use a lathe, even better. But better. I mean, your site is absolutely amazing. I was saying to you before we came on air, you cover everything. I've just made a couple of notes. You set up the mounts, how to power line, cables, EQ mods, capture software, reviews of gadgets, Pix Insights. That is so heavy. I'm one of these guys who's bought it. I've managed to do blink. I'm looking for asteroids, and I've managed to use the blink comparator so I can put frames in and see if I can get this asteroid going across the frame. It's worked. It's great. But the actual processing of the images, it's so heavy. But I'm going to get there. I was going to keep following your tutorials. It's great stuff. So review of gadgets, light pollution, that's a big problem. And as I was saying before, living in the city, I'm about three miles out from the city centre of Liverpool. So we get the light pollution on the horizon. The clouds are orange when we get clouds most of the time. They're orange or white even. So when we get those clear skies, we still got that haze, that whitish haze in the background. So yeah, we can use light pollution filters. Back in the day, we'd get rid of sodium lights, but it's all LED lights now. So
much harder.
Full spectrum, and as you said with yourself, you got the sports centre. I have a sports centre not far from me, just half a mile down the road. But when that was getting set up, I managed to correspond with the planners, and I said about the lights. Now the lights go off now at 10:30 p.m. by agreement. So that's a great thing. We have an observatory not far from the city centre where we use our 12-inch meads and observe generally with the public. We have a bridge, the Silver Jubilee Bridge, that is illuminated by the lights from down below, and they shine upwards onto the clouds. By agreements and with the planning committees and the local councils, we've managed to actually get them to turn them off at midnight. So that's there is some improvements happening, and we did talk the other night on a program. It does, but if they don't listen, and I think you probably find yourself, it's a hard battle, isn't it? Because you're constantly banging your head against that wall, trying to say, look, I want to see the night sky. I'm a minority. I realize other people don't do astronomy. They don't look up. They look down all the time. And you're trying to get your message across without sounding like, dare I say it, a nerd or an anorak. Yeah, we are nerds, and let's be proud of that, It's very, very difficult. But of course, you've shown how you can use narrowband imaging, and it can cut through some of this light pollution as well. It's not the ideal, it's not the answer, but it's a compromise. And that's the route I'm going to follow from your inspirational videos. And that's where I think it's the only way, because you said that you were depressed for a couple of months because of these lights when you moved in there. I've been depressed for 2 years because the local security lights coming on and off. If they stayed on, okay, that'd be it. If they stayed off, that'd be perfect. But they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. And it's horrendous, and it is very depressing. So yeah, this is the battle I've got, and you got the battle, but you're doing something about it, and you're not sitting on your backside where I'm sitting on my backside, and I need to get out there and do it. So I've got to sort my cables out. So I've got to do all the reviews. Since I started, I had cables that were 20 foot long, all strapped together in a loom. But now you can get shorter cables, and you can get little boxes and little gadgets, and you can do a little USB connecting box underneath your telescope, go into one cable to the computer. You can even do remote Wi-Fi. Yes. So this is how it's changed in the last year. So I've got a lot to learn. I've forgotten, and I've got to remember how to switch on. You do take the dust cap off, don't you, off the telescope as well?
Oh, I forget to do that sometimes.
Okay, and you know that thing, that Bardenhoff mask that gives you that lovely extra focus, and don't leave that on when you're imaging. Is that right?
Yeah, no, don't leave that on either.
Because I've got some lovely images of crosses. I know Peter likes his star spikes with his pretty pictures that he does. But yeah, I've done this with Orion. Lots of little X's. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to pass you over to Gary because Gary, you're on admin, are you, Gary, on a site, on a Facebook group?
But I used to
I'll probably
be
get this
admin
wrong.
on Astro Backyard. Amy's admin on there.
Right, so that's where the correspondence came in.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
we've been chatting.
I know Amy in the first place, really. Obviously,
Yeah.
Obviously Tim Cowell's on there as well. He's started the page in the first place. So I sort of got to know Amy through the page, through Tim. Obviously, tutorial videos on Pixel Insight. I've sent a few messages to Amy in the past.
Help. Yeah, sure.
So, but my issue was, it turned out my actual machine didn't have enough RAM in it for processing, so I've had to upgrade to be able to run it.
Yes.
It kept crashing a lot on me when I first bought the software, but I'm getting there slowly, still learning, still watching your videos, getting loads more kit back together. Obviously, I've just got 2 new cams, so I've gone down the Altair road myself. I've got,
There you go.
the 3 and the 294, both colour. So basically, what I wanted to ask you, have you had any use with the Altair tri-band filter at all when you've been using your cams?
I've been using it a lot lately.
Yeah, so
It's been a huge help with this light pollution.
light pollution, that's what I was about to say, because obviously that's what we're struggling with here. We've got a lot of white light LED street lighting now
Oh yeah.
around our observatory. There's a nice big cluster light at the end of the road, 6 of them. Field.
Yeah.
So we were just going through the best filters that we could find at the moment. The Altair seems to be doing the job. Obviously, there's a few others out there. I don't know if you've used is it the IDAS D2? I think it is.
Yeah, I haven't used that one. I've
Um,
used the L Pro Max that
yeah.
they've got. I've tried the Optilong UHC, but that didn't give me good results at all.
I've actually got that myself. I've got the
Yeah.
Optilong UHC and CLS, but they don't seem to.
Yeah, those didn't work so well for me.
Mm.
But and those two actually turned me off of one-shot color, and I went the straight mono route for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now. And it's only been this new camera, the 269C, that brought me back to color.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it would be possible, but I actually liked a color camera.
Mm. Well, obviously the reason I've gone down the one-shot colour road is because we don't get the skies on over here for
Well, exactly. You know,
long exposures and data sets. So it is nice to be able to do it all under one roof with the one cam.
and I was down to producing just 1 or 2 pictures a year with the mono.
As I say, well, I haven't done anything in ages, really. I'm still testing, just doing tests and practicing bits and bobs, and then hopefully I'll get back out there. It's a big learning curve from going from a DSLR to a dedicated Astro cam.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, as I say, getting there slowly. So what rigs are you using at the moment? You still got your Explore Scientific there?
I still use my Explorer Scientific a lot. Yeah, and it's on a Skywatcher EQ6R, and I treat all my telescopes, if I can afford it, let's say, as one big rig. So each one is a plug and play apparatus, and I just decide if I want an 80 millimeter one day or 102 millimeter, and they're all set up with their own little mini PCs.
Yeah,
you know, which is nice, but it also got expensive, you know. So I broke down and bought a little mini PC that now floats between all these different telescopes that I'm trying out these days. So it's getting quite exciting, and my little room is getting really crowded.
What computer are you using at the moment to power everything from? Was a pocket device?
Right now, my favorite one is a BMax.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a little BMax one that I got off of Amazon, and I liked it because you could actually add another SSD card to it. So I added 2 more terabytes worth of storage, and just having that, and it had, you know, more RAM than the other ones. The first time I tried to do planetary, it actually kept up, which was nice. You know, it wasn't choking or anything. So,
Yeah.
but I'm still not successful with planets because now I find out that my big C11 needs to be collimated, and I've never collimated before, so I need to learn that.
That'll be easy for you. There's some good tutorials out there on YouTube.
Gosh,
Yeah. No, it's
there are,
it's a,
and I have been watching
yeah.
a lot of those.
Yeah, the only thing is with any collimation, only work small amounts and maybe one or two screw. You're trying to tighten and adjust and loosen one, tighten one, but don't go too far. Otherwise, if that secondary comes loose, that's it's a bit
That's
of a
what I'm
problem.
afraid of.
Yeah, but just keep it tight and it'll get there. Yeah.
Okay.
I've had a nightmare collimating the polar scope on an AZ GT today. Just took the grub screws out to replace it with thumb screws and cross-threaded one of the thumb screws as it's gone
Oh
back.
no.
Engineering, do one screw at a time.
I did do that. It was very slow. The
Don't drop them.
The first two went in perfectly. The last one
Yeah.
has just gone off on a slight angle, and because it's very cheap aluminium, isn't it, on the polar scopes and stuff like that, so
Easy to chew it up. Yeah.
just chewed
Yeah.
it up and gone through. So
Well, see, I can tell you on day 2 of me owning my Skywatcher EQ6 and knowing nothing about astronomy or anything, the instruction manual, heaven forbid, I actually read this instruction manual, said collimate your the eyepiece for your polar scope. So not really knowing what it was, but I had my little Allen wrench out and I poked it in one side and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I poked it in another spot. And next thing I know, my Allen wrench went through the sight line and I could see it through the center. Well, before I knew it, I had actually pushed all those grub screws into the mount. And then the little glass eyepiece came tumbling out onto the grass. So, and I never got it back in straight again. So the very next day I bought a pole master. And that's why I bought a pole master, because I couldn't get polar aligned. In day 2, I screwed up the mount.
Yeah. Send it back under warranty. Send it back.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
I think we have. Yeah.
Just got a couple of emails in. We got an email in from Stefan. He's just outside of Moscow. He says he finds your videos inspirational.
Oh, thank you so much.
And also the astronomy group, the Ishmastan astronomy group in Iran. They're out in the Iranian desert. They said they find your videos inspirational too.
Wow.
Wonderful, beautiful country out there.
They've got some dark skies.
Yes,
they have,
do. They do.
Yeah.
It's amazing that how far you do your videos, and you're doing it for an audience that you may think, well, I'm in the US and people in the US will watch my videos, but the world is so much smaller than it used to be, and that you've got is worldwide. It's stunning, isn't it? We're actually we're broadcasting at this moment to maybe 250,000 listeners. Yeah, that's our average.
We're just over tonight, just over 250,000 listeners worldwide in nearly every country. So,
wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So where can people go to see these YouTube videos, Amy? How do they?
Well, they are listed
find
on YouTube.
Them? And do you have a website?
Yes, I do. YouTube is Amy Astro. Website is amyastro.com. Very easy. And on Facebook, I'm Amy Astro Photography or Amy Astro Adventures, something like that, because Amy Astro is taken. I guess there's another one of me out there somewhere. I'm not sure. But at the end of all my videos,
there's only one.
Yeah, in the description, there's only, they broke the mold. Trust me. That's exactly what my dad has said for years. The world couldn't take 2 of me. Definitely.
There's a thought.
I am amazed.
Yeah. What do your parents think of the work that you do now? Because I know from my parents' point of view, they just thought, they remember me as a little kid. I was looking at the stars and following space and the Apollo, and there came a point when my name was on a TV program as the expert astronomer. They always have these credits and the expert astronomer, and it was me. And my dad, he told everybody, and everyone had to watch the end of these credits. VHS video back in the day, and people would come into the house. Look at this, just watch this. Pause, and the video would be going as they used to do, stuttering, and my name would be just at the bottom. He was so proud. My mum had passed away; she never got a chance to see that. So I just wondering, what do your parents think when they see the images that you're doing and the tech that you're using?
Well, I think they're really surprised about everything that I'm doing. You
Yeah.
know, first off, they'd see a picture and that was cool. But one day they came out and watched everything that I put into it. And that's when there started to be a huge amount of respect going on, you know, because it was a lot of
Cool,
work.
yeah.
And it's funny that my parents share my videos with all of their friends. And their friends are a bunch of cruise people. So I don't really think they're into what I'm into, but it's fun that, yeah, they're very proud and you know, it's exciting. And I get my
That's
dad
great, isn't it?
involved in a lot
Yeah.
of projects. You know, he's an electrician, so he helps me with the hands-on with some things. You know, I tell him what I want to accomplish and he tells me how I accomplish it without creating sparks. So
Yeah.
You're lucky, because my mom, she's 86 now, bless her, but my mom's an astrologer.
Oh,
And
Peter, we've got to be careful of our
get
language on the
confused.
air.
Yes.
Be careful of that
and
language.
she does star charts for people. And when she sees my images, then she gives me an astrological interpretation of them. And the one day, she said, "You're only behaving like that, Peter." She was the only person that calls me Peter is my mother when I'm.
Uh-huh.
And she says, "You're only behaving like that, Peter, because your Jupiter is in Gemini." And at the time, I took her outside. I says, "You see that, Mom? That's Jupiter. You see that constellation that it's in? That is Taurus." And she said, "That's your opinion."
Just wait till she finds out Mars is in a fucus.
Don't confuse. She's 86 now, so I'll let her get on
There
with
you
it.
go.
Oh, you got to be fair. Okay.
And she's from the Pleiades, isn't she, Pete?
Oh, don't God, no.
Peter, you might as well. We've started, so just tell the story about the Pleiades.
Oh, the
Go on.
Pleiades.
Sorry, Mum.
There's an observatory in the south of England called Herstmonceux, and I was what they call keynote speaker, the main speaker at this big astronomical event. And so my mum said, because she doesn't live too far from Herstmonceux, I'm going to come to this. I said, "Mum, you wouldn't enjoy it. It's about using remote astronomical telescopes in observatories around the world. You wouldn't enjoy it. I'm coming." First thing she did was embarrass me by jumping up and saying, "Don't start yet, your sister's not here," in front of everybody. And then once my sister had arrived and we could start, then she proceeded to tell everybody that she came from the Pleiades originally. Her spirit came from the Pleiades and was born into her body here. And I thought, oh my God. And everybody was going, "Oh, she's lovely. She's lovely." And I'm sitting there thinking.
Well, Peter, all I was going to say, mate, is that is pretty remote observing, isn't it? Or remote imaging.
Yeah,
all the way from the Pleiades. Oh, dear.
So I do have a lot to put up with.
you handle it well. So, yeah, Daz, what's your thoughts on astro imaging? And you're a slew man, aren't you? So what is slew?
Yeah, I use remote mostly. As for astrophotography, I usually do sort of like nightscape stuff if I can. And as you know, it's just basically back garden. And I know I moan about light pollution, but what Amy has to put up with is it's diabolical. I'm bored to sort of like 3-4, depending upon what the cloud cover is like. And then the reflection of the this near towns and that. But yeah, usually we can get out and do a bit. I'm one of those that I like to keep the image as near as possible to what I actually saw. I don't do a lot of processing. I think I'm just too lazy to learn. So yeah, mine's sort of like out in the backyard. When I see a gap in the clouds, point the camera, see what I can do, and just tinker with the settings and things like that. So sometimes put a narrow band filter on the front, but usually I haven't got time to do that. So it's that little gap in the cloud as it goes across. See what I can see. But,
do you track the gap, do you? Don't track the star, but track the gap.
Yeah, well, exactly. I haven't got any trackers.
Image rotator.
Yeah. It's like a machine gun in summer. So yeah,
we call those sucker holes over here.
Right, sucker holes.
Sucker holes.
Okay, well, I'll remember that now. That's a technical term, is it?
It's highly technical.
Right, sucker holes. Everybody will understand what I mean when I call it a sucker hole.
We know.
But yeah, that's the amount of my thing. And then, as I said, with robotic telescopes and stuff like that, that's what I normally use. So yeah, so I don't really do like I say, much in the way of processing. So, but I think I should learn. I might be able to. But I think my learning days really are over. So yeah.
I know that feeling.
Another feeling does.
It gets to a point, doesn't it, where you think, oh,
Yeah,
it's
too
getting too heavy, this, you know.
Yeah.
And now they're sticking,
some.
yeah, now they're putting extra computers under the telescope now.
Yeah, I've got to forget something before I put something else into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
It's usually to put my trousers on. That's the trouble.
first thing in the morning,
No, don't
always
forget
get
that
dressed. Before you go to work, it's very important. Yeah. So I'll bring Simon in. I was going to mention, Simon, about the colour of objects. When we see images of the Crab Nebula or the North American Nebula, Orion Nebula, I tend to go for salmon pink. I don't like these pillar box reds. They're too deep a red. It just doesn't do for me. But I like salmon pink. I think it's subtle. It says this is hydrogen alpha. You know, this is the HA stuff there. So, Simon, what's your thoughts on imaging and these images that we get coming in? Are they real? And if I could fly past the Orion Nebula with my spaceship and look out the window, am I going to see that maybe?
We've taught, was it 7 billion people all the wrong colours because of the Hubble palette. So
that's right, yeah.
Everyone thinks of the universe in the wrong colours. Well, let's be artistic. If NASA can do it, why can't we? But I do like the softer tones. I like just like Daz to see stuff like I see it through a big telescope. I like to see how my eyes see it, and that sort of gives me a bit more reward from what I see. And when I take images, I don't black the sky until it's absolutely 0, 0, 0. I actually leave a bit of colour in it because that's what it really has, because I've got an atmosphere above me.
Yeah,
unlike Pete.
It just likes flooding it with gaseous colours and things.
Space is dark.
Space is dark.
But it's not. I had a chat with an astronaut a year or two ago. Sadly, no longer with us. Is this one the one that I was?
One that you stalk.
The fact that I was caught up a tree that just happened to be looking into his window has got nothing to do with it. Never proved it. There was no footage, no CCTV camera at the time.
Apologies, I was just going off the images you posted the other day.
I was trying to. Oh, yeah, was it Al Warden? That one.
Yeah, Chris.
It was actually. It was Al Warden I was stalking, and I asked him when he was around going in orbit around the moon. Whereas the Apollo astronauts, whereas the other guys are walking on the moon. Apollo 15, he's in orbit around the moon. So he gets that point where, as he said to me, he can't see the Earth. The Earth can't see him, therefore they can't talk. He can't talk to the astronauts on the lunar surface because they're out of line of sight as well. So he's totally alone. And I said to him, well, that must have been really, strange. He said, oh, no, it was absolutely beautiful. The peace and the tranquility. All I could hear was the sounds inside the capsule. So I asked him, do you ever get a chance to look out the window when you're behind the moon? I'm not going to say on the dark side of the moon because someone will say there is no dark side of the moon. Of course there isn't. And he said to him, because his eyes were totally dark adapted, he could look out the window and the sky was bright. It was washed with starlight. So we're talking, as we do on Earth, 6th magnitude onto the 7th magnitude. So those stars that are just on the edge of visibility, his sky was totally awash, and he could not see, he couldn't define the constellations because the sky was so bright. Now, when you navigate from the Earth to the moon, as you would do in the naval situation, you use the navigational stars. So you use Deneb, Vega, Castor, Pollux, all those stars for the navigation, as you would do with the sextants. So when you're in space, you're using the same stars because these guys are either Air Force or the naval, so they know how to navigate. But when you get to the far side of the moon, on the dark, I'm accidentally saying it, Arnie, on the other side of the moon, you're totally dark adapted, and all your stars are now lost in that whitewash of faint starlight. So it was difficult to navigate with the stars from the Earth to the moon. It was okay because the sun's in the sky and you got a bit of glare and you tend to see the brightest stars. So I was just fascinated to think that we say the star, a good sky background is black. It's not. it's a touch of greyness about it. There is a hint of starlight just on the edge, and then you could go on about the background cosmic radiations or whatever. There's always some light. The sky is never black, and it's just our interpretation, I think, isn't it? Anyhow, that's just my take on it. So, Amy, is the sky black? Do you make your skies black, or do you have a hint of grey to it?
Well, I always have the goal of the hint of gray, but by the time I'm done, it's usually pretty black.
Yeah.
But then we're just going to call that the Facebook dance on images when we pop them up. So
Yeah.
what's on my computer and what you guys see is two different things.
Peter's showing a photograph that he's
There you
taken,
go.
and the sky is black.
It is black.
Yeah, too black, mate. That's a 255. I can't have that. No.
It's just the contrast is pumped up.
The universe is in the eye of the beholder. I think
There
that's
you
the key.
go.
And it's
There
whatever
you
you
go.
make
Can
of
I,
it.
can I ask an age-old question then?
Go on, Mike.
Why is the sky dark?
Well, funny you should say that.
They didn't pay their power bill.
Yeah. What's that paradox?
Yeah,
Olber's paradox.
Olber's paradox. That's something we can talk about that in a while, I think, Ron, when we come down to our questions. Olber's paradox. Why is the sky? Why aren't the stars everywhere? So yes, Simon. You don't agree, or do you agree with the Hubble palette?
I think it's very pretty.
Okay, but
Yeah, and they had to pick something, and the frequencies
Yeah.
they're picking up aren't all sensitive to the human eye. So yeah, it's lovely. It's just if I whiz round in my imaginary spaceship, I'm not going to see that. But yeah.
it'd be
Not,
great.
not until someone invents those special goggles that were being talked about the other night, where you just put them on and you can go
Yeah.
and see in
Yeah.
gamma radiation. You can go and see whatever you like, gamma rays. You can see X-rays.
X-rays.
The first person to
Ultraviolet.
make these special goggles that could do infrared, and you can switch them to a bit
They
of
just-
ultraviolet. Yeah.
That
Change the
sounds like a
frequency.
disco ball out in space.
Yeah,
That'd
it
be
does.
cool, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, talking of disco ball, let's go over to Pete and have a track for the listeners.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to the chat in a little while, and we're going to have now Devon Bird with Star People.
Peter will tell us in a moment if we're live or not.
Okay, you're all right. You're not on air. That's the thing.
No.
No, we're having fun.
We're trying to behave ourselves, but it doesn't happen, does it?
No,
No.
not at all. Amy, one of the questions that has come in, and is coming from Serge, and Serge is in India, and he wants to know: do you travel to many other countries to do your photography?
No, sadly, I haven't. I'm pretty well locked in the state of Georgia. I get out to my surrounding states, but I don't go very far. I work full time and I'm a mom, so it's hard to
Yeah.
travel.
No, it is. I mean, if you're in the United States traveling to other countries, it's far enough just traveling across states, isn't it? Without traveling across to other countries
Certainly
as
is.
well.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is.
you probably travel further to get a loaf of bread than we do to travel to go on holiday. I got a friend. He's a postman in Texas, and he says one of his customers is 350 miles away from his base.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
He says he's only got 4 drops on his route. We call him Texas Tom. He's a bit spaced out. We think he smokes lino. We're not sure.
Linoleum. Lino.
Yeah, so you don't get out to other countries, because we got a question in from Tien in Japan. He said he finds your videos again. He says finds them very inspirational. He said he's been looking at getting PixInsight. He said, but he just feels that it's maybe a step too far for him at the moment. So I've just said, I emailed him back and said, you need to watch more of these videos. Because one part of my teaching is I go out and teach in schools photography using 2-meter telescopes based around the world. And one of the places I always point them to go afterwards, because we try and get PixInsight into the schools, is to go and look at your videos. So again, you're getting into the schools around the UK as well. So.
Oh,
Brilliant.
wow. That's fantastic. I didn't think I was that much of an expert
Well,
on all of it.
I think
Peter, hang on a minute. She'd start charging you. Don't
No, I let everybody else do that. I started this whole thing because a friend of mine moved out of state and he wanted to learn how to use it. And this was the best medium that I could find out for us to communicate. You know, I made videos for him and I didn't make them private. So the whole world suddenly started to find them. And I said, let's see where this goes.
I think
it's something to think about. You could actually do one-to-one over the, you know, with Zoom or TeamViews or whichever. And that may be what some people prefer, a one-to-one. I like the videos that you do free of charge. It's great. But yeah, you know, it's a possibility. Other people are doing that.
I mean, I did a group of Venezuelan people, and a Venezuelan astrophotography group wanted to learn how to use remote telescopes. So I did a Zoom lecture to a group of Venezuelans yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, the work is out there if you want it. So.
Right.
Well, one of our team, Mary McIntyre, she was just recently doing a talk. Where was she? Basically, it was translated wherever it was in the world. It was actually translated. So her talk is normally 1 hour. So she had to make it half an hour to allow for the translation as well, and try and cram as much, and also get as much information across to the audience. I can't remember what country it was, but it worked.
Yeah, well,
that's something.
One of them was closer to home for me. I had to go to do a talk in a school on using remote telescopes in Wales, 4 miles up the road, and I had a translator because all the classes have to be in Welsh. I can't speak Welsh, so they were translating into Welsh. Then the kids, who all spoke perfect English because obviously, you know, and they had to speak back in Welsh because it's the school's policy, and then it was translated back to me in Welsh. What would have been an hour's lecture took 3 hours.
Oh my word.
We have to get translators for Liverpool as well, don't we? So
well, that's
my accent. I talk very slowly, especially on air. I talk as slow as I can, just so that it comes across okay. Because if I broke into my Scouse accents, as Gary knows and Ron knows, so you wouldn't be able to catch what I'm saying. Like they do, don't they, Amy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's sitting there looking horrified.
That is
so now that you gave me a sample, I can appreciate you were talking slow, but I really thought you were talking really fast. Now, if you want slow, let's talk about the Southern drawl.
The Southern drawl, but it's so easy to understand as well.
And of course, if you come into mine and Michael's area where we live, or where I'm from, Michael still lives up there. We have a completely different language, really.
From the Pleiades, though. So
I mean, if I was, I've done this before on air, but if I was going to say you talk a lot, I'd say, yeah, I'm like a gleed under a dower, Yaubin.
And I would say, huh?
Yeah.
I think we also.
I think the others in the chat are going as well.
And it's known as the Black Country.
Yeah. So it's known as the Black Country because it's very industrial. It's an industrial area of Britain, so they call it the Black Country. So,
as was.
As was. It's not industrial anymore. We've got no industry left. Yeah, and that was where I started doing astronomy up in the Black Country, and it was an industrial area. And when I started out, my first telescope, it was facing a factory that had lit furnaces all night, and all you could see was the smoke and the flames coming out of this factory. And then we had a thing called the 3-day weeks. So most of these won't be old enough. Ron will be.
I remember.
Weeks. When we had power cuts because they couldn't.
1970s.
Yeah, because
they were the days.
So when you had these,
the skies were great.
All the power went off everywhere, and so because there was power strikes and the coal wasn't getting to the to the generators to generate electricity. So the sky would be completely dark for about 2 or 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, because there was nothing switched on at all, and that was amazing. And I'm probably one of the only kids that was praying for the power to go off, and all the other kids are going, "Oh, the power's gone off, can't watch the telly," because we didn't have computers in those days in the early 1970s. But because the power was off, I could get my telescope out and see things I'd never seen before. And that's
I was just going to say, how would the kids cope today if that happened?
I think they'd all go and jump over a cliff.
Lemons.
But when the Wi-Fi goes off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh no!
But it was a to try and do astronomy where I grew up was almost impossible. All you could see was the moon and the planets. You hadn't got any chance of seeing anything else. And of course, when the lights went out and I could see the Milky Way, and then the winter came and I could see, you know, Orion and what have you, I was just, wow, this is unbelievable, because we hadn't got the chance of traveling because parents didn't have a car and that in those days. And so it was just a matter of praying for the power to go off. It sounds bad, doesn't it? Praying
It
for
was,
the
it was
country.
good. Yeah,
We
the skies
could
were
use
dark.
at least one of those a week.
Yeah, it'd be great if they did that. Wouldn't it be good if they did that? If there's a policy that all the power had to go off for one day a week.
Yeah, Saturday night, and everybody's out and enjoying life.
Yeah, because we had a lady on Thursday. She was from the campaign to protect rural England, and part of their campaign is to reduce light pollution across England, well, across the UK as a whole, really. And you know, we were talking about this, and where I live now, if the lights go out, once the security lights are out here, it's fantastic. But we've got a castle in the village. It dates from Saxon times, from the 700s. And it's lit up all night. Why? Who's going to go and look around a castle at 3 o'clock in the morning? But, you know.
You can say the same about shop windows and advertising boards. You know,
where I work at the moment, it's part of a big shopping mall. And it's recently been bought out by a company called Bruntwood. They've gone in with Trafford Council and bought the whole mall. Now, they came round all the premises asking owners, what could they do to bring in publicity to the mall and things like that. So obviously, me being the chairman of the Astronomical Society, I said, well, what about a stargazing night on the roof, on the car park roofs and things like that? Where could the council turn all the street lights off for one night in Trafford, and we'll have a big stargazing night? It would have pulled in the amount of publicity it would have pulled in for them, not just around the area, from worldwide. It would have been unbelievable. It was like, remember when Geneva turned all the lights off for one night a couple of months back, something like that. We're trying to do this for around Manchester, basically. They wouldn't go for it at all. Nothing. Wouldn't even contemplate doing it, turning the lights off for one night. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I was talking. We're talking to a guy. I think he's kind of, when I say local to you, it could be a few hundred miles away. But Steve Ramsden, do you know Steve Ramsden from Charlie Bates Solar Project?
Yeah,
I know who he is.
Yeah. We're talking to Steve, and he was saying you have a lot of events out in the United States where people will go and plonk a telescope on a street corner, and then people will come and look through it.
Yes.
And when he came over to the UK, he was amazed when he was asking to do this. And we were saying, no, you plonk a telescope on a street corner in Birmingham or somewhere like that, somebody will come and nick it. You know,
put a chain on it to your ankle.
he was very surprised that the attitude is very, very different over here.
This is how John Dobson started out, putting a telescope on a street corner. People just coming along and have a look at this. It'd be the moon, or it'd be a star.
That was the original sidewalk astronomers.
Sidewalk astronomers, yeah. And it's something that we've taken up. Well, how many years now? Ron? It's a long time, isn't it? 20 years plus. We had a group who said this. I had this idea of doing a sidewalk astronomy based on what John Dobson was doing. I thought, oh, what a load of rubbish that is. You know, you can't call it sidewalk astronomy. No one's going to know what you mean. But you couldn't call it a pavement. Obviously, in the UK, we call it the pavements. In America, it's the sidewalk. And the pavements astronomy just sounds silly. Sidewalk astronomy sounds better in that sense.
Yeah.
But we did this small group did. It grew, and all up and down the country in the UK are doing sidewalk events now. And a lot of our membership comes from those sidewalk events, because the public are interested. They get fascinated. They see Saturn through a telescope. It's like, oh my God, it's wow. And that literally does have that wow factor, doesn't it? You know, everyone remembers looking at Saturn for the first time. And they want a bit more. When's your next sidewalk event? Well, we're going to be doing one just 10 miles away. Oh, what date? And they come along to that. So you end up with a group of followers. Because of lockdown, we can't do that at the moment. And people are saying to us, how soon can we start this up again? When can we come to the next one? We want to do it. They want to come to them. And the membership benefits from it as well.
We did one in Shrewsbury a few years back with the Shropshire Astronomical Society. and we had to pack it in because we got a group of kids they were hiding behind walls and stuff, throwing cans and rocks at us all night. So we just had to stop. It was pointless.
That's a shame.
Yet, like Dave said, you probably go and do it in Liverpool. You get a great response in the middle of a city. Go and do it in a rural town, and you don't, where you would expect it to take off, and it doesn't happen. It's quite sad, really. You know,
we usually, like, Salford's not the greatest of areas, as people know. But usually, if we're out on the field at the observatory and we've got the scope set up for night time, there's a load of kids turn up. They tend to want to look through the scopes and rather than cause hassle. You know what I mean? They want to know what we're up to and have a look. So we're quite lucky in that sense. So,
but I think with the school curriculum, science is is part of it, obviously, but astronomy is part of that curriculum now as well. So it's only the basics of astronomy, but it's getting taught at the younger ages. So they got an interest in it, and hopefully that interest stays with them. You know yourself. Sometimes you, as a youngster, you get a little bit about the telescope or about the moon or something, and you might not follow that, but years later you remember, a friend of mine had a telescope and I looked at the moon through it. I wouldn't mind doing that again. Where can I find a telescope? And they find out you're doing outreach, and they come along, and next thing is they buy a telescope, they join your club, and it all benefits. Fantastic stuff. Are we ready to go for another track, Pete? Or
I was just going to ask Amy a question before we go to the next track. Is Amy, have you ever used robotic telescopes based in other observatories around the world?
No, I haven't. I've not attempted that opportunity yet.
Well, what I'll do after the show, I'll set you up on the 2-meter telescope in Tenerife, so you can have a go with that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
And you've got access.
Awesome, thank you.
You'll have access to the data as well. So there's lots of data on there you can play about within PixInsight from the 2-meter telescope. So I'll set you up and send you.
That would be terrific. Thank you.
So we'll go over to another track.
Okay, thanks.
No problem at all. But we'll go over to another track now, and this is Hovey Star, Made of Stars. Okay, you're
now.
Oh wow!
We got to work out where the track is because
it's not far from him.
Well, that'd be great. That wouldn't. Let's all meet up with Frank.
Well, I saw a total eclipse in 2019 as well.
Yeah. I've been lucky. I've seen 4 up to now in my lifetime. Hopefully, I'll get another one out of this. But I was going to say, Amy, I was lucky enough to go to Casper, Wyoming, for the 217 eclipse, and that was great. I was on a ranch, and it was for me going to America. It was for my first ever trip to the US. It was just like being on a Hollywood film set. All those films I've grown up with. There was something. I'm driving down the road, and there's the nodding donkey. Because Wyoming's, it's got oil and whatever, so you're getting the nodding donkey. You never see them in the UK, but there's these in the fields, and just absolutely amazing to see this. These big, huge trucks with all the chrome, absolutely stunning. Because that's what I think of America. First time in my life I've ever driven in another country in a left-hand drive. Absolutely, that was quite something. Driving on the freeway, whatever, and all these trucks are going by, and I'm on the wrong side of the road doing whatever mile an hour I was doing, or kilometer an hour. Absolutely amazing. But they're just the normal things that we as tourists would see. But the actual eclipse was just stunning. When that eclipse happens, everything changes. And you get the hairs on the back of your neck all stand up, and it's just an amazing feeling. I'd recommend everyone get over to America 2024. There's going to be some eclipses going on for those coming years. Great things to see. So what do you remember of yours, your trip to the eclipse? Where did you go?
Well, I went to Waterloo, South Carolina. We landed on a golf course that was being renovated for new owners and such. So we had an entire golf course full of cameras and telescopes and people, and it was like a party event. It was really quite neat, and what was funny is not even a few months earlier, I was just going to blow off the eclipse because I had no clue what it was going to be like. And when I decided I was going to go, I learned everything I needed, but I convinced my husband to take the day off of work. I took my son out of school, and we drove the 2 hours to Waterloo. And, the whole time they're like, is it really going to be that big of a deal? It's only a minute. Really? We have to drive 2 hours for a minute? And I was like, yes, we're going to see what this is all about. and they still talk about it, about just the calm that washed over. Everything got quiet. It got pitch black really fast. It was incredible. And I don't think I'll ever want to miss another one again. You know, it was
That's it. It becomes
watching my son
yeah.
enjoy it, who is nothing but video games, was
Yeah.
really special.
The thing with an eclipse is you can't reproduce it. You can record it on
No.
video. You can take photographs of it. You'll have your memories, of course, but you cannot get the atmosphere of that moment. You know,
No.
when the
It's the
crowd.
orange glow.
Yeah, it's the orange glow, and
Mhm.
depending where you are, you get the either a rustic color because the way the light comes through. I say I was on a ranch, so the soil was tend to be a little bit orangey anyway where I was. There wasn't much green, but you get that color, and everything goes strange. I remember 1999 eclipse. Everything went sepia. It was like being in an old photograph, you know, those
Well,
original
you and I were
photographs.
both at that one.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just a strange moment. I think every eclipse is unique. So you've got to go to the next one, Amy. You must do. Nature goes crazy, doesn't it? What do you remember about the
Definitely.
animals? Anything going on there in the nature? Birds go mad, I know
The
that.
crickets. We could hear the crickets
Oh,
and the
right.
bullfrogs going nuts.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what was funny is that day we had clouds moving in and out, but they would break up just enough so we could see the next phase of the eclipse moving
Yeah.
on. And right before the main event, this big storm cloud blew over, and everybody was like, oh, and we're all watching our clocks and everything. And then all of a sudden it opened up. We saw the whole event, and then the clouds moved in and the rain started. We got soaked.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just that fast. So I never saw the back half of the eclipse, but I saw the front half. And it was just,
It's just
and with
amazing. Isn't
rain
it?
was just fun.
Yeah.
You know,
But
it
when
was.
the cloud is still
change in-
dark as well. Sorry, Daz. Yeah.
Oh,
I was
yes.
just going to say, it's not only the change in the brightness of the light, but it's the drop in temperature as well.
Yes,
which
yeah,
sends it down your
Yes,
spine.
yes, because
And
it was
And
it's all
August.
things like
the
that.
strange optical effects. It's
Mm.
things like little patterns of light through leaves and trees, and you see these
Mhm.
crescents on the
Little
ground,
That's
half
right. Yeah.
moons.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the shadow bands.
Yeah. Amy, did you see shadow bands?
Yes, we got to see
You got
all
them.
of that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I didn't.
yes.
I didn't see them from where I was, but certainly in the centre of Casper. I was a little bit out of Casper, but still on the central line. But in the town, maybe because of the concrete and the buildings, they were more visible. But they observed the shadow bands quite easily. And there's some actually on video as well on the roadways. But yeah, all these little things that are going on at any one moment. But I just love it where the stars come out and the planets come out. I honestly can't remember what planets were visible. Was it Jupiter? I remember Leo Regulus was to one side of the
I don't
horizon.
remember.
Yeah, I'd have to look back on it again. But yeah, it's just it's the atmosphere and it's so emotional. I am guilty of crying at every eclipse I've been to.
Yeah.
I just can't help it. The emotion just takes over, and
Mhm.
me and my wife we're just like bawling like little babies just because how beautiful.
Aw.
I get emotional now just thinking about it,
Yeah.
and it's still there. It's there. You know, I can feel it.
And don't
Yeah.
forget to take the filter off at totality, Dave?
Mhm.
Ah, Dave,
Right.
tell your
We've
story.
talked about this many times.
Yeah, tell your story. Tell Amy your story. This is hilarious.
Okay, I'll make. I've got to make it quick. I got hired by a TV company to video the eclipse 1999 in Bulgaria. The couple of days before, basically every day I was practicing, getting the equipment set up. I dealt with two cameras on a Vixen equatorial mount, so I did all polar aligned. All that was fine. I had the area cordoned off so that no one could interfere and knock it and so on. Unfortunately, my wife took very ill a day or so before. We can only put it down that she was the only one at the restaurant who ate shark, that we'd all eaten the same meal, but she got food poisoning. No one else did, but she got the food poisoning, and it was severe. So she was quite ill. That slightly distracted me because I had to make sure she was okay. On the morning of the eclipse, we go up on the roof, and basically everything's set up. The manager, I got to know the manager, so I managed to get on the roof, which was quite good. These things happen. And he said, don't worry, it'll all be nice and quiet. Just you, me, and my family. we get up there, there's Italians, there's Germans, there's local Bulgarians and whatever. Some of the staff were in and out, but they're asking me, what's happening? Can we look through your camera? Can we look at your pictures? What do I do? Can you take photographs of me? One guy gave me his brand new DSLR camera. I think it was a DSLR. It must have been. Yeah. He gave me his camera and asked me, could I put it on the platform, on the drive platform, and take some photographs? Just leave it on a timer. And he didn't know me at all. He just trusted me. And after the eclipse, he disappeared, and I'm left with this brand new camera. I think to myself, well, where's he gone? I managed to get it back to him. His video was great. He absolutely loved the images. But because of the distractions and with people coming back and forth asking, is it safe to take my observing glasses off? These silvered glasses, the mylar glasses. Is it safe to take my eclipse glasses off? I go, in a moment. I'll say when. And the next thing is, I'm this expert on this roof with all these people telling them when it's going to be safe to take the sunglasses off. So I'm getting distracted from all different angles, and I forget to take the lens cap off the solar filter off the front of the camera lens. I got paid £400 to video the eclipse, and I had to then tell the TV director, sorry about that, I forgot to take the lens cap off. Long story short, I plugged the courage up and I cheated. I just said in the email, sorry, I won't mention the name of the company, but sorry, mate, left the lens cap on. But we got some great time lapse for an hour or so before the totality and after, and some interesting sound comments in between. One of those sound comments is my wife asking me, "Is everything okay? Is the image okay?" And I'm going, "Well, I've left the lens cap on," and she says, "Is that a problem?" Not at the moment. But basically, the producer director came back and he just said, no problem. It'll be interesting atmospheric shots, and we can use the time lapse for other things. We've got loads of total eclipse footage from previous eclipses, and there'll always be another one. And there's me worrying that I haven't done the job that he wanted. And he was so nice and laid back about it. But the thing is, don't get distracted by everyone around you. Concentrate on what you want to do. But my advice, and I don't know how you feel about this, because I don't know whether you took it and pictures of the eclipse, I would say leave the camera at home, use your eyes and sit there in a chair and just look at the sky and stand up and look around 360 degrees and listen what's going on. Because you got, as you say, Amy, you've got 1 minute in your case. I had, I think, 2.5 minutes on one eclipse and 1.5 on another eclipse. And that moment just goes, you can't rewind
Very
that clock.
fast.
Videos will never do it justice. Yeah, and of course, there's always those videos out there where every eclipse, there's images on the internet. There's videos out there on the various social media and whatever. So you've always got that record to look back on, and you'll get that extra by observing it yourself. So that's my passion for eclipses. So yeah, 2024, we're going over to see Frank. He doesn't know it yet. I told him to get the kettle on. But there may be more than 3 of us. We'll see.
There you go. So
you have to join us. We'll get it all get in touch.
Yes, I'm still hunting for my location to go.
Well, yeah, it was difficult because I was actually asked to decide where to go, and our friends who lived over in the States, they said, well, we'll just take you. You tell us where you want to be, and we'll take you wherever you want to go. So it was 250 miles away from where they lived in. They lived Denver, I think it was. And it was 250 miles to get to Wyoming. And I thought, oh, that's a long way. And that's like from Liverpool to London or Liverpool to Scotland. And it's nothing. In the States, that is nothing. As we said before, you probably go to the nearest corner shop and it'll be 100 miles away. And it's just down the road, isn't it? On the highway, freeways. Yeah.
We don't think anything about 100 miles.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if Mr. Musk pulls his finger out and gets that Starliner going, we can just jump on that. 40 minutes later, we'll be knocking on Frank's door.
Go up, let the turn underneath, back down again. Okay, Amy, what's your top 5 objects to image in the sky?
Well, there's the natural ones of the Orion and the Horsehead. I really love doing the Triangulum, the Witch's Broom, and Pickering's Triangle. I love those.
Yeah.
Let's see, another favorite. Oh, Pac-Man. I did that one last year in Narrowband, and I really like that one.
Wow.
So,
I always think of when people take images of the horse head. I just love the fact that it looks like a horse's head. It really does.
exactly. It was, people
yeah.
understand it.
Yeah. Why is it called a horse head? Because it looks like a horse's head. But it's that gas.
Well,
You know, it's the gaseous clouds. You know, when you look at the cloud behind the horse.
It's like
When
fire.
you get it right, get the focusing right, get it just perfect, and they get the seeing conditions just ideal. You get those streamers in the cloud. You see
Yes, I
lots
love
of images,
those.
and it's just the hydrogen. It's just a film of cloud, isn't it? But those top images, it's those streamers, and it looks like the curtains
Yes,
of
I love
streamers
that.
in the curtains. That I always go, wow, that's what I would love to get that one.
Yeah. If Amy,
Will do
if you're going out to photograph the Milky Way, I presume you go out and photograph the Milky Way with your DSLR camera.
All the time.
Yeah, that's just a phenomenal thing to do. I love doing that. But what DSLR camera are you using, and what are your techniques to do this?
Well, I use a Nikon D850 with a wide angle lens. It's usually about 11 millimeters. And lately I have been putting it on one of those glider tracks, which is a lot of fun, and turning them into time lapses. So you get the motion and all that set up. But I think my favorite Milky Way trip was up on Rowan Mountain on the Appalachian Trail. So we headed out late one night, about 11 p.m., start up the Appalachian Trail where everybody else is technically gone home for the day. And at about 3 a.m., I'm on top of the mountain, and it's summer down in the valley. We were sweating, but up on top of the mountain, I had winter coats and gloves and all that on. But looking over everything, all the cities that were below me and seeing the Milky Way on top, that was probably my favorite trip. I do a lot out to the coast, and I do the boneyard trees with the Milky Way, and those are a lot of fun. But typically if I can keep an exposure at 10 seconds or below, I don't get any star streaks. I can usually get up to 800 ISO, up to 2000 ISO with my camera, and you don't really notice the added noise to it. It's just a fantastic camera to do for night shots.
Do you take many exposures and stack them, or do you just go for single shot?
I do a little bit of both. I like the single shot ones, but if my horizon is relatively easy to cut out, I'll do some stacking, and then I'll take one of the foreground and blend it back in. But those tend to be tricky when you're dealing with trees and limbs and stuff.
Have you used one of the programs I use? I just couldn't remember the name of it now. Sequator on the PC. There's an equivalent version on the Mac that you can take 100 exposures if you like, and then stack them. And if you just paint the foreground, it keeps the foreground still and stacks and that kind of works pretty well. I've not tried it with trees and stuff, but I've done it with trees in the distance. It works okay with. I don't know about trees close up, but it's worth trying that one.
Yeah, I've done everything manually with Photoshop and layers and blending brushes. So with my Milky Ways, I haven't tried any third-party programs.
Just try that. Have a go. It works quite well, because I tried it this year for the first time, because I was doing the same as yourself. I was taking the photographs, stacking them, cutting the background out, layering it back on again. And it's never that successful. Perfect. You can always see the join, or you can see where you've gone around a tree.
We know where it is. Yes.
We know, yeah, that's it. But Sequator, I've used it this year, and you can't tell. You really can't tell, and it's a free program. So
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. If you look in your messenger box afterwards, I've already set you up on the 2-meter telescope. All the information is there. So
okay, thank you.
So it's ready to go. So you can have a go. Well, just download some data and play with it to start with. There's gigabytes and gigabytes of data of all sorts. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Something to do on those cloudy nights, isn't it?
Something to do. So we're looking for our next PixInsight tutorial with all this extra data, right?
Well, that would be great if you could use that data, because there's lots of amateur imagers out there who've got access to this data. So they would also be able to choose the same image that you've got.
There you go, and work along with Amy.
Hey, well, now there's a good title for a program. Work
It
along with
is.
Amy.
And the
I like
nice,
it.
the
There
nice
you
thing,
go.
the nice thing about the data from the 2-meter telescope, particularly, there's no light pollution on it at all, none, and very little noise. So,
Wow.
I mean, the CCD camera on that telescope
That
alone
sounds like a dream.
yeah,
2 meters. Imagine that in the back garden.
Yeah, and the CCD camera was, I think the CCD camera is about 24 grand's worth. So,
What's on it, Pete? Do you know?
it's called a spectral. It's a custom made specially for the telescope. It's called a spectral, but it's got literally no noise at all. And the exposures, what we've learned with the ordinary smaller telescopes is our exposure times. The exposures on a 2-meter telescope is, if you're doing, say, the Ring Nebula particularly, your exposure time is 3 seconds per channel. And you only need 1 3-second red, 1 3-second green, 1 3-second blue, and you've got that. And if you do 1 3-second HA, you've got the outer nebula as well.
Wow.
So all the data's there for you to play with, and because you can, the more data you download, the better it's going to be. So, you know, and as you're getting galaxies, 14th mag galaxies where you've used a 10-second exposure.
That's incredible. I'm excited now.
It sounds like fun, doesn't it?
It is fun. It is, and it's nice because you haven't got to do any darks or flats or
No
bias
calibration?
frames. None at all, because basically the software on these telescopes does what they call pipeline calibration. As it's taking the images and downloading it to the computer, it actually calibrates it as it does it. It's all automated. So when you get your image, so when you get your,
where do I get one?
well, you got one now. You got a 2-meter one in Tenerife.
I do.
So just use it. Yeah.
It's called pipeline calibration, and it calibrates the images for you, so you haven't got to go through any of that process. It's just done. So when you're stacking your images in PixInsight, like the procedure I take with them is I register them first, and then I combine them, each channel, and then I just combine the channels, and that's it. And then all I have to do in PixInsight then is just stretch it slightly just to get it right. And then when I've got it near enough, save it as a TIFF, pop it in Photoshop, and just give it that little bit of a touch up, and that's it.
Nice.
From downloading the image to finishing the processing, I never spend more than about 2 minutes on it.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Give
I
it
spend all
go,
day on
Amy.
an image.
Let's see what comes out of it.
I never
All
spend
day on an image.
never spend more than 2 minutes on an image. Once I've gone past 2 minutes, I know I'm not going to get anything more out of it.
You're
So
bored.
Peter, show that picture of Andromeda that you had behind you there before. So for our listeners, hopefully you can follow this on the YouTube channel on playback later. Pete's holding up an image of the Andromeda Galaxy, M31, M32, and the NGC object, was it 205? I can never remember that one.
205, and you've also got the star clusters within the Andromeda Galaxy, because that's picked up, and the globulars.
Of course, yeah. So what's the exposure details on that, and what telescope? Can you remember?
That was a 106 mil Takahashi, based in New Mexico, and it's 4.5 minutes per channel, and pipeline calibrated. So,
and how long did it take to process that one?
About 2 or 3 minutes.
That's cheating.
That's a challenge, isn't it? Hey, let's see what you can do. That's it.
I spent more than that doing this background picture here.
Believe that, Ron.
Yeah, I still can't see any clusters, Ron.
I can see the clouds. There's clouds in the river as well.
But it is. I mean, when you're using, that's the thing, is if you're using robotic telescopes, and the idea of robotic telescopes is that we're teaching school kids how to use it. I mean, I've had 6 and 7 year olds producing images of M74 and galaxies like that. Like they were taken with the Hubble, but that we can't be taking school kids through bias frames and flat frames and that, and so the telescopes are set up for outreach education mainly. So All the pipeline stuff is great. You can download the darks and the flats and the biases if you want to torture yourself. But what's the point?
No.
When the software, when it's all done it for you already.
Get it done for you, even better.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I say, have a play around with it, produce some images with it, and maybe then you could put some videos together on how to process robotic telescope images, because there's a lot of people out there that are using robotic scopes because they can't afford to go out and buy telescopes, or they're not in a location where they can use a telescope. So that's another string to your bow. If you have a play around with that, it's another string to your bow to put onto your YouTube channel, and I'm sure people would appreciate that.
Yes. Excellent.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Could I ask Michael? You had a point before. You said about you're a Nikon camera user and you've got a problem with your exposures. Can Amy advise?
I just wanted to ask Amy's advice, really. I use Z7 mirrorless now. I'm quite lucky to have that for landscape photography. And I want to use that for some wide field star, constellation shots. But as I said, with the light pollution where I live, I can't really go very high on the ISO. Have you got any recommendations for exposures? And the other thing is I've recently treated myself to a 14mm wide angle full frame lens for again generally for my landscape work, but I want to use that on the sky as well, and that's an f2.8, so that should be good. So I wonder what the sort of exposures that would be considering the light pollution as well.
No, those are really great lens. So I had a little bit of breaking up in there. So you're asking me what camera settings or?
Yeah, sort of ISO settings mainly. I'll use the 14mm on f2.8. But with the light pollution, it's the best exposures really for general star fields and very short exposures.
Mike, what is your background sky like? Are you?
It's quite dark. It looks quite dark to the eye.
Yeah.
It's whenever I use a camera on the night sky, I've only got to go, 15, 20 seconds at say 3200, and it starts to white out on the frame.
So what can you do there, Amy? Then stop it from whitening out so short.
Well, I use I have a 2.8 f lens, but I bump it up to 3.4. It gives them a little bit sharper and it requires just a little bit more light. I do try to keep under 15 seconds. I prefer 10 seconds, or the stars are going to start looking like little rice pellets. And if light pollution is an issue, I would probably bump down that ISO and get it to under 800 if you can. And take more pictures and let them stack to get your colors and detail out rather than longer pictures.
Okay.
Because I'd rather not have little pieces of rice on my photos. I like stars. So if you can bump it down to even 8 seconds and just stack 5 or 6 of them, it would look really nice.
Right. Okay. Right. Thanks for that.
So this is basically not tracking, not following the star. Camera on a tripod.
Camera on a tripod.
Right.
This is good advice for our beginners, I think.
But what I did in Tenerife on Mount Teide, I was able to do in a really dark spot on the mountain. I was able to do 30-second exposures at 3200, and you just got pinpoint stars. And it was brilliant. Obviously, I haven't got the skies like I've got there. So
it's always a useful thing to just knock the aperture back a notch, because it does help take out, because effectively light pollution is a diffuse light source, and knocking it back just helps take it away a bit.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Is any of our panel can explain what's known as the 500 rule? Anyone come across that? If you would, Ron, if you explain that, because I think this is important for our beginners. The basic principle is the longer the focal length, the more you're going to notice the apparent motion.
Mhm.
If you've got a telescope of a long focal length, your star is going to fly across that field of view.
Yeah,
We've got a camera now.
Yeah, it's a very good point. If you stop and think about it, the Earth rotates once through 360 degrees every 24 hours. So that means in an hour, it rotates through 15 degrees, which means in 4 minutes, you're rotating more than double the diameter of the moon, the apparent diameter of the moon. So it doesn't take very long for the stars to appear to drift. And the 500 rule is a basic rule to help you work out how long an exposure you can get away with before the stars appear to drift. And there are 2 things you need to know about. One is, what is the focal length of your lens? And the other is, what type of sensor have you got? Have you got full frame, or are you a crop sensor? And the rule works by taking 500 and you divide it by the focal length of the lens, which has been multiplied by the crop factor. So if you've got, say, a 50mm standard lens and it's full frame, the crop factor is 1. So 500 divided by 50 means 10 seconds you should get away with. But if you've got, say, a Nikon DX camera, something like a D3500 or a D5600, then it has a crop factor of 1.5, which means that 50mm lens behaves as if it's a 75mm lens, because it's 50 times 1.5. So it's 500 divided by 75, and that gives you your maximum exposure length in seconds. Canon is very similar. I think the crop factor on Canons is 1.6. And I think Micro Four Thirds, the crop factor's 2. So that's the basics of the 500 rule. Some people use 400 instead of 500, but that's the basics of it. It's 500 divided by the focal length and allowing for the crop factor if it's relevant.
So 500 divided by 14 for my lens, which is a full frame lens.
Yep.
Gives me 35.7.
Yeah, that's probably a bit long.
Yeah.
You might be safer going with, because you've got a full frame camera, you might be safer going with the 400. Long and the short of it, experiment. See what works.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Ron. It's great.
Yeah. Of course, listeners, if you haven't caught that, if you just type in 500 rule on your browser, it will come up with the information. There is plenty of information out there. But I think Ron has put that across very well and explains it. And that will help, I think. We used to do 30-second exposures with a camera with the lens one stop closed, and you get star trails. But then we wanted star trails. It was only as you progress and get further down that, getting more professional about your images. You don't want the star trails, because then you can get your galaxies or your Milky Way, and then that becomes a little bit more technical. And then you start building a telescope or a camera that can track the stars, so the stars stay still, and you build up that faint images. But now you can actually buy these things, can't you? Star trackers, you can buy them, which is pretty cool. Okay, I think we're ready to go for another track. Talking of trackers, we're going to go to a track. Over to you, Pete.
Okay, this is pre-med, and something astronomers do. We're up all night.
Thank you. Okay, Amy, our show is astronomy and it's music, because our audience out there, as I say, we've got 250,000 listeners out there, and they like astronomy, or they like the music, or they like music and astronomy, and that's why we get out there. So what's your interest in music? Do you have a particular band, or what do you say these days, genre of music?
A genre.
What's your likes?
I listen to everything.
A genre, yes.
I love the classic rock, and we do a little bit of country down here in the South, but of course, I love just about anything that has a guitar in it, and part of that is because my son plays the guitar really well, and I can't really pick any one thing. I don't like rap. Yeah. I'm sorry. Rap is for gifts and wrapping paper. I can't get into that.
For me, rap should begin with a C.
Solo.
I mean, ZZ Top. I would imagine you like ZZ Top because you're talking a little bit like
Love
Kaz from
ZZ Top.
ZZ Top.
Yes, that's a
Um,
great one. Them, Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Um,
How come the only one in ZZ Top without the beard is named Beard?
Frank
Is it
Beard.
Frank
Beard.
Beard? Yeah, how
It's a
come
drummer,
his
isn't it?
name's Beard and he
I
hasn't got a
remember
beard?
they're a lovely bunch of guys because many years ago we went to Billy Gibbons' birthday party down in London, and they're really nice guys, really nice guys, and that fascinated us that Frank Beard hadn't got a beard.
I wonder, he's probably like, well, I've never noticed that before, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that
so
old one.
I mean, we always think of country music, of course, but there's country rock as well, isn't there?
Yes,
There's some good
there
bands
is.
doing
There
country
is.
rock. Yeah.
Yeah, I play quite a few country rock tracks on Astro Radio from time to time.
Yeah.
There's a band called Freedom Call. Not too sure where they are from in the States, but they're very good country band. And yeah, quite a few.
Yeah. Well, Amy, do you ever listen to any music whilst you're doing your imaging? You know,
Yeah.
you're actually looking at the night sky. Do you ever put your headphones on and have a bit of ambient music, maybe?
Not really, because there's usually a lot of folks around me.
Yeah.
So we're all, the group I image with, we're all remote. So we kind of get our stuff set up, and we get our little laptops, and we set up our chairs in a circle and socialize, you know, and have a few spirited drinks along the way. And, you know, the most intelligent thing on the field is the 12-year-old Scotch. But yeah, we're more social than music.
Oh, I like the social side of it. Yeah. Do you ever,
yes.
while you're imaging, you're saying you got your laptops out and obviously a bit of glare, bit of light pollution off those laptops. I assume you go for red screen.
Oh, we definitely have the red plexiglass screens
maybe
on,
not.
and we put them
Yeah.
in these little what we call lap domes. They're canvas tents that your laptop fits inside of.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And
yeah.
they're black on the inside. So yeah, we don't give up much light pollution. We're very careful with that.
Oh, that's great. Because the problem I always find is we tend to mix with the visual observers as well.
Yes, we do too.
Yeah, and there's always that, you know, your screen's a little bit bright there, you know, and yeah, when your eyes are getting dark adapted, the slightest little bit of light off a computer monitor, even a mobile phone, it ruins everything, doesn't it? So I personally find it an annoyance when people have the laser pens, you know, the laser pointers, and they're pointing out the stars or the constellations. And now you're getting folk now who are polar aligning with a laser pointer attached to the telescope.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh no.
We have a rule within within the first hour of sunset. That's where we limit our laser pens to, you know, for our educational purposes. But you know, come second hour of full darkness, there's no more of that.
Yeah, because the biggest problem that we have is you know, aircraft flying over. I live on a flight path locally,
I do too.
So we tend not to use them. We have the policy of not using light pens or laser pointers because of that. But I miss that because it's the easiest way to point out. Yeah, but it's a great instrument for education.
Yes, it is.
I do enjoy using the laser pointers, but you know, we've got to think of the pilots as well. Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of the show, I think.
We've got about a minute left.
A minute, is that all?
But when we're out at Skellig Star Party, that's the one most annoying thing is because it's a Milky Way group. We all go out to this dark sky site out in Ireland, so we're looking out towards the States across the Atlantic. So it's quite very dark, and you can always guarantee you're just starting to take an exposure, and somebody points their laser pointer up and you got this green beam going through your exposure.
That's the problem.
But it happens every year. But we're going to go over to the finishing track now. I want to thank Amy for joining us here on Astro Radio tonight. Thanks, Amy, for coming in.
Yes, thank you for having me.
That's Amy Astro.
Amy Astro, yes.
Amy Astro.
Enjoyed this.
You're welcome.
Yes, Amy Astro.
You're welcome anytime just to drop into our shows. It's a free for all, as you know.
I would love that.
And
yes.
we'll be back. we'll be back tomorrow with the Ellen Valley Dark Sky Day, and we'll be back on Monday with the Reach Out and Touch Space guests to be arranged, trying to get Martin Braddock back in to talk about drugs in space, not drug taking in space, but drugs in space. Martin is from Astro.